northern, the northeast, and the Savannah regions. Now, what's special about these regions? Clearly, they have contributed significantly to the national votes, and the numbers there have changed significantly as well compared to what we had since '92. So today on the show, we'll be focusing specifically on the percentage or the quantum of voters that have joined the previous numbers that we've known about, and then also project into 2024 December, which is just a few days away, what is likely to happen in these three regions of the north. Now, as you also may be very well aware, the two key candidates in this year's elections hail from that part of the country. So we'll be trying to find out what kind of impact the fact that they are coming from the northern part of the country will have on this year's elections. I'm talking about the NDC's candidate, John Dramani Mahama, and the NPP's candidate, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. Both of them have gone to their various regions to canvass for votes, but how is the campaign likely to translate into actual votes? That is one of the key issues we'll be looking at. And we'll also later hit the campaign trail and find out what exactly constituents are saying regarding the messages that the various political parties are telling them. The number behind me gives you an indication of how many more days we have until we all go out queue to cast our ballot to exercise our franchise. 12 days, less than 2 weeks from now, we will be going to vote to elect 275 members of parliament and then also a new government. Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo's administration comes to an end on the 6th of January 2025. A new government will be taking over. But before that, Ghanaians would have to give their mandate to whoever they believe should steer the affairs of the country through the ballot box. And that will be happening on December 7, 2024. We'll be discussing all of these and more on Election 360. Do stay with us. Right, so first on the list of items we are going to be looking at today has to do with what we call the election nugget. Now, we told you that everything we do in this country is backed by law, and there are specific quotations in the law that you need to know about as you go about campaigning, talking to people, and then also exercising your responsibilities and duties as a citizen. Today, we are focusing on the specifics of what you say and do that could change someone's mind if they are going to vote or not. So let me go specifically to the law, and I'll tell you why this is necessary for you to know. So it is about false statements, and it says, a person who before or during an election for the purpose of effecting or preventing the election of a candidate makes or publishes or causes to be made or published by words, whether written or spoken, or by a song or a statement which is false or which he knows or has reason to believe to be false in relation to the personal character of another candidate or the conduct of a political party, has committed an offense. There's a lot of legal language, but simply put, if you say or do something that prevents someone from going out to vote, or whichever way, either you say it or you write it or you even put it in a song, all of that contributing to someone not exercising their franchise, you have committed an offense. Now, I indicated that I'll tell you why we're saying that. It goes on to say, a person who before or during an election knowingly publishes a false statement of the withdrawal of a candidate or the purpose of promoting or procuring the return of another candidate commits an offense. And that is in Section 39 of the Representation of the People's Law, 1992, PNDC Law 284. Now, what this primarily is stemming from, or a typical example of why this is necessary for you to know, is that a few days ago, a so-called journalist on another media platform was on air telling people that on December 7, when you go to the polls, that is the day they are voting for just the first 7 people on the ballot paper. And that on December 8, the rest of Ghanaians can now go and vote for those from 8 and below. And that is false. That is a serious statement, very dangerous statement to make, coming from a so-called journalist in a media house. You know, over time, people accuse the media of allowing our platforms to be used to propagate very dangerous things like that. You have totally miseducated the people, and we are told the Ghana Police Service picked up that individual who later was released on bail. But technically, for such an offense in a crucial moment like this, the person shouldn't be released, must immediately be prosecuted. And that's a position I hold strongly, that in fact, the fact that there is a law backing and ensuring that you do not miseducate, misinform, or spread disinformation, you have fallen foul and should be dealt with very harshly, especially knowing that a good percentage of the Ghanaian populace are illiterate and they may be listening to you. In fact, the worst part is the person even said it in the local language where we have majority listening. So we need to be very careful with our utterances and trust your election command center. We here at Media General are responsible. We'll make sure that you know what the law says, and then also you know your rights so nobody sits on it, especially when you go out to vote. So be mindful of what you say while you're campaigning and how you try to convert or change the minds of people to go and vote. If you misinform them, the law can deal with you. That's your election nugget. It's good that you have that in your pocket and in your mind as you go about your election activities. Stay with us. We'll delve deeper into our major discussions for this morning. This is your Election Command Center. This is Election360. Right, so thank you for staying with us, and like I indicated, we're going to be having quite an intense conversation about the regions in the northern part of the country. Sana Kwashe is with us in studio. Hello, Sana.
Thank you.
Good to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me once again.
And clearly for Election360 and between now and December 8 or probably December 9, we'll be having a number of our key colleagues in here pass through to help us understand what the numbers are saying, what the key topical issues are that you also need to be paying attention to. So like we indicated, we have 2 gentlemen, for the first time in Ghana's election history, 2 gentlemen, all hailing from the northern part of the country, standing for the top office of the land. 5 regions make up the northern region. It has been redemarcated. Now we have a number of them split. But then these are the 2 leading candidates, John Dramani Mahama of the NDC, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia of the New Patriotic Party. So, Sana, maybe you can go through quickly the regions that make up the northern sector of the country.
Okay, thank you very much, Martin. So we have the northern region, which has stayed pretty much as it has always been. But then we have the Savannah region, which was split out of the old northern region. Right. And we also now have the northeast region, right? So that split happened sometime in 2017 period. And that has also given each of the different parties bigger inroads to sort of improve their grassroots support, because now you have smaller bases to really focus on talking to them. Then we also have the Upper East and the Upper West, which have remained as they have been since. Yeah,
and maybe for those of you who didn't take your geography class serious, just pay attention here. These are the regions, and we'll take you through them. At first, before 2020, before the split, this is Northeast, this is Northern, this is Savannah. These 3 made up the northern region. Yes. And now we have Upper West and then Upper East. So that is our concentration for today. And these are the candidates we indicated. Now, key point to note, which is that the specific region John Mahama hails from is the Savannah region.
Yeah.
And then I beg your pardon, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is from the northeast region. And so if we go back to our map, John Mahama, we are saying, comes from the Savannah region, which is this region. This is the Savannah region. So this is around this area. That's where John Mahama comes from. And then the NPP candidate
comes from northeast.
Northeast. And this is the northeast region. In fact, this one, the northeast region carved out of the earlier northern region. And the number of seats up for grabs in terms of parliamentary seats in total make up 57. Over the years, the NDC has had 37 of those seats. The NPP has had 20 of those seats.
Yes.
And that was in the 2020 elections.
Yes.
You made indications that the split of the regions has given the parties a bit more advantage so that they can go to the grassroots to speak to them. That indirectly means that depending on how they sell their message, these numbers could change.
These numbers could surely change. I think what you would also see in the historical analysis is that the NPP has actually made considerable gains in that region since 2012, where they have moved now from about a single digit to getting, I think, 21 in the election before 2020, and now 20 seats. And we'll show that again in the analysis as we continue. Yeah,
so presidential votes, we know that the NDC has comfortably won the northern region over the electioneering since 96, actually. Yeah, so these are the historical numbers in terms of graphical representation. Since 96, we know that the NDC parliamentary seats, the NDC had 9, NPP had 3, and then in 2000, NDC had 12. Maybe you can point to that. The NPP had 2. The 2004.
And then what you see is in 2008, NDC had 12, and then NPP had 3. But then in 2012, there was a bit of a change, and like I mentioned earlier, and there was a better performance by the NPP, where they got up to 6, and then of course the NDC came down from their earlier 12 to have only 11. Now, with the 2016 elections, there was a complete split of the northern region, where NDC got 9, and of course NPP also got 9, and then again that's repeated in the 2020 election. Which, when you look at it, the introduction of a key and strong person as the supporting candidate for the then presidential candidate Nana Addo in those 2 elections may have galvanized the people to really split the votes for the NDC, and you can see that trend. That of course, the presence of somebody from the northern region at that key position as the vice presidential candidate in the NPP has really helped them gain the numbers. When you look back at this chart, also, it was not very clear when there was Aliu Mahama also supporting Akufo, but clearly something has happened, something has gone right for the NPP when it came in the 2012, 2016, and of course the 2020 elections.
And you recall that it was in 2008, that's the first time that Nana Akufo-Addo asked Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia to be his running mate.
Exactly.
And so in 2008, the NPP didn't really do well. They even fell from 2004 to 3.
By 1
but
seat.
The Bawumia effect clearly started increasing their numbers. It shot up to 6 in 2012, although NPP didn't win the national election. Then in 2016, when Nana Akufo-Addo or the NPP won national elections,
there was
clearly there was a parliamentary improvement as well, based off on any. You cannot take out the argument or the effect or impact of Dr. Bawumia. Actually repeating it in 2020. As to whether that impact will still be effective going into 2024 is a different conversation.
Yes, it is a different conversation.
More, especially now that he is also not just a running mate.
He is the presidential candidate.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
All right. So those are the key findings we are bringing to you on how things have been in the last few elections. And this is just a line graph still on the northern region, and it's percentile representation. You can tell that, for instance, like you indicated, the NDC has almost always been above 50%. In fact, their least they had was in the 2020 elections, right? Where they had just about 50.7%. And the NPP has had, they started coming down even further. But in the runoff to, I beg your pardon, in 2012, the Bawumia effect didn't reflect as much
on the presidential side. So what you would see is that, again, this Baumia effects that we are talking about didn't really reflect as much on the northern region in the presidential side. Of course, they just made about a drop of down to 34%. Again, that same, there was a small drop also for the NDC when it comes to that period. But what you see is that MPP shot up to 48.55%. The NDC also came down slightly to 51.45% in the 2016 election. So the gain from 2012 to 2016, when you compare it, the MPP gained a lot more, and of course the NDC also lost a lot more. So clearly MPP outperformed the NDC when it came to the presidential election in the northern region. Now, when you look at that and compare it to what we just showed, which was the parliamentary effect, you can see that, okay, there was some good thing that happened for the NPP in the 2016 election because they came up significantly in the parliamentary side, and also now clearly showing that they came up significantly also for the presidential side. Absolutely. But they lost that when it came to 2020. Yes. It fell sharply down to less than 30%. Yeah.
And that's a shock, actually, because you would have expected that with this kind of increase, so 48, 34, we're talking about, say, some 7 or 8 percentile increase. The drop is actually the worst performance the NPP has had in the northern region. And it's absolutely surprising because you'd have thought that at least, if not for anything at all, they would have stayed within the 40 percentile mark. But this one, they even dropped way less than 20. They are 29.5%, and that's significant to note. What would this mean going into 2024? It's also instructive to note that if you look at the current numbers that have registered to vote, the northern region is pulling some significant numbers. The campaign messages in that particular region from the NDC is that this is supposed to be one of our safe havens,
our strongholds.
Our strongholds. So there was a mistake in 2016. We quickly recovered in 2020. Let us entrench that recovery going into 2024.
So that is the stake for JDM, to really entrench his position or entrench the NDC's position as, okay, the northern hold is ours, right? So not just even for the northern region, but all the 5 regions in the northern part of Ghana. And it's a good message for the NDC to be saying now, because they have consistently seen some small decline, and in some areas huge decline in terms of their support when you compare it to the MPP candidature and the elections, especially from this period of 2012 to 2020. So they have every right to be not worried, but to be a bit cautious of losing what has been seen historically as their stronghold, especially when you look at these numbers here for the northern region, this increase here for the northern region, also the previous one that we showed, where you see this increase again in the parliamentary results. Every single person in the MPP will be wondering, okay, what is happening to our stronghold? And the NDC will be wondering, what is happening to our stronghold, and how can we correct that moving forward? So I think when you look at, again, the next region, which is the Savannah region, again, on the presidential side, it's a clean sweep for the NDC. They've won it 7 out of 7 times. Yes, and the MPP has not won the presidential at that level. But when you go a bit deeper into it and you look at what has been happening in the Savannah region, so when you look at the parliamentary results, NDC has practically owned it. And of course, there was a bit of an increase for the MPP where they gained 1 seat, increased it to 2, but then it came down to 0, down to 0. And again, in 2016, they performed a little bit better, gaining 1 seat in the Savannah region. And in 2020, that miracle that happened for them in the northern is also showing again, where they increased the numbers down to 3. The problem here is you can see a sharp decline happening for the NDC in that same Savannah region. And if that trend continues, they might be matching the MPP, or even the MPP might surpass them if they also continue the trend of going up come 2024. So that is what you are seeing again, also specifically for the Savannah
region. And again, as to whether, again, these numbers, and this is Savannah region where John Mahama hails from. So you would have thought that because he has been in power before and is also now contesting, the numbers of the NDC would improve. But these are the parliamentary results.
Exactly. So let's look at how and this is what I wanted to mention on the Savannah side. So the presidential results on the Savannah side have pretty much been stable.
Okay.
When you look at it, right? So even though the Bawumia effect that as we've been calling it has happened for the NPP on a grand level in the northern parts, when you look at Savannah specifically on the presidential level, it really doesn't show much. It's much of a decline from what they gained in 2008. Of course, there was some better performance in 2020, but you can clearly see that the Savannah region has stayed quite loyal and true to the NDC. Yeah. And of course, the NDC will be banking their hopes, will be banking everything on it staying loyal and true to the NDC come the 2024 presidential elections.
All right, that's a very important point to note. And again, these numbers you are seeing for 2008, 56.7 for the NDC, 39.5 for the NPP. This is the particular year in which Dr. Bawumia was named as a running mate for Nana Akufo-Addo. Yeah. Maybe he had some effect. We cannot tell for now because it's in the past. However, you would have thought that at least there will be some stability or increase. It actually has increased from 2016 to 2020. 2016, there was a national, there was some sort of an appeal of the NPP candidate. There was a sweep across the entire country. But even in 2016, the NPP's performance actually dropped to 33.4. And 2020, it went up. We are unable to tell what 2024 would look like. But subsequently, we'll look at the specific numbers in terms of the regions and even constituencies that have stayed loyal to some parties and its effect on the national, on the regional numbers when they come out. So this is the Savannah region. And like we indicated, we're also looking at the total number of people who have registered to vote in 2024. Of the entire tabulation, the Greater Accra is number 1, the Ashanti region is number 2. If you follow it in that order, the 15th region with the highest voter population increase is the Savannah region. And it is worthy of note because if you look at these numbers, maybe subsequently we should be able to bring the nominal numbers. Then you can tell whether or not...
Yes, what the percentages actually mean in terms of the nominal figures.
And out of the 16 regions, this is the 15th highest. 15th highest is actually quite low. The next is the Upper East region. All right, so those who have registered to vote in 2024, 342,431. Okay. The Northeast region, we touched on briefly, but this is how their parliamentary results have looked like since 96. 96, it was a total sweep. No NPP vote at all.
At all. But what you again see with the Northeast region, which is one of the key regions for the NPP on the parliamentary side, is that they have consistently performed quite better than the NDC when it comes to the 2012, 2016, and 2020 elections. And again here, the stakes for both parties are simple. The NPP would want to establish itself at least in terms of the parliamentary results. Because the inroads they are making on the parliamentary side is significantly decreasing the NDC stronghold, even if they are not winning the presidential specifically. So they will want to at least maintain their parliamentary leadership in the Northeast region, also maybe increase it and make it better in the other regions. And this shows that the stake for the NDC is to go back to declaring that, because from owning or from having about 4 seats in 2008 and coming all the way down to 2 in that region seems a bit, it's worrying. It's a worrying trend that you can clearly see. There was a bit of a better performance in 2016, but clearly it did down again in 2020.
Yeah, it's surprising. You see, if you go through like all the data we've analyzed in a few minutes, you could tell that in 2016, the NPP had a national swell. But here in 2016, the NPP just, in fact, the NPP didn't perform as much.
Yes, they lost one seat.
One seat.
On the parliamentary side.
Yes, but if you still stay on that trend, in 2020, a number of the regions that predominantly vote for NDC, it was as if they realized, oh, we made a mistake in 2016. So the NPP numbers started dropping again. In the 2020 elections, NDC did better. But here in the Northeast region, it looks as though the NDC still couldn't push punch above their weight and actually dropped and lost one more seat. So they have
they dropped one seat that was gained back by the NPP.
All right. So that's the Northeast region. And this is their presidential result since 96.
Exactly. So this Northeast region is one of the 2 regions, I would say, that have been swinging a little bit, right? So where the NDC is still in the lead, winning 5 of the presidential elections. But of course, when you look at it at the full regional level, the NPP has also won the elections there twice since 1996.
And one of them, I'm sure, is 2016. So let's actually take a close look at it in terms of when the NPP won. So these numbers are the the Northeast region from 92 or 96 straight through. It was in
2016.
2016 that the NPP won.
Yes, by a slight percentage.
That's very, very razor-thin slim. Right? 49.4% for the NPP, 48.5% for the NDC. And again, like I indicated, after the 2016 elections, it was as if, people thought that there was a mistake in 2016. Let's reset that mistake in our strongholds. Then the NDC went up again. But the margin wasn't as big as all the other times they've won, bar 2004.
Yeah.
2004, when they actually performed their worst. I think that since then, so 2004, they were just 43. 2016, they came down to 48. They started rising again. 2024, we don't know whether this will crisscross or the trajectory will continue.
Yeah. So what you're clearly seeing from data is eventually we might have to start qualifying the Northeast region as one of the swing regions, right? Because if you look at the 1996 result, the gap here, and how within just like 6 cycles, it has come to almost an even split. You can clearly see that, okay, something significant is happening in that region, something significant is happening in all the constituencies that make up that region. A good point to note, because the region did not exist in this particular elections.
Okay.
Right?
As a Northeast, it
as a
not,
Northeast region.
It was part of the northern.
It was part of the northern region. So we are looking at also those constituencies that were cut out or carved out to become the Northeast region. Something significant is happening there that is about to make it, if we should continue this trend, a swing region that it will be harder for anyone outside to predict what the voting pattern would look like, both on the presidential and also on the parliamentary side of the election.
And it stands to reason that we also need to look at the NPP's growth in the region as well. I mean, from the wide gap of 75 and 12, they have seen, what was the expression? They've seen like a steady climb, and 32, 35, 44, 48, and even their worst performance was just about 1 percentage point, loss to 47. So it means that NPP has actually done some good work in the Northeast region, or is doing something right in the Northeast region, that if NDC wants to retain its dominance, they really need to start looking, paying particular attention to. And this is the
total number of registered voters for the upcoming elections, which makes it, again, at the bottom of the table, the 16th highest. And it is a clear figure that both parties have to be worried about, even though it's at the bottom of the table. It's almost an even split for them. So every single one of them will be looking at how can we increase the dominance, because this halved would give us less if we're able to do this 70% or maybe 60% or maybe even just 55% instead of being like a 49% or 48% in that sense.
All right, so that's the Northeast region we've put in perspective for you. The Upper East now, which is at the very top, is a border region. The NDC has predominantly had it safe since 96. Even 92 if you added that. So we are going into our 9th election cycle, but of the last 8, the NDC has won, and won comfortably. Now let's try and break it down into specifics for you.
So for the Upper East, and of course you would also see a similar trend in the Upper West region, it's consistently stayed true to the NDC. I think one thing that you would see if you visit our election portal 3news.com/elections and you use our analysis tab, you can even look into each of the constituencies to see the voting pattern, and you would clearly see that there were some big shocks in there where, for the first time I have actually ever seen, a presidential candidate from the NPP did not show up in top 2. an independent candidate outperformed in one of the constituencies. So for the Upper East, it's practically been steady. There have been some drops in this block over here, but of course the NDC has been performing quite well in 2012, 2016, and of course in 2014 where they shot up. 2020, where they shot up, and the NPP only ended up with one seat in Parliament.
Yeah, that's quite significant to know that. And again, so the NDC has been stable. In 2016, when even there was a national swell for the NPP, the NDC managed to retain the number of seats they had in the region and then increased it in the 2020 elections. So that's by way of parliamentary, and now we are Upper West region.
So similar situation in the Upper West region. It's been a clear shot for the NDC on the presidential side. They won it 7 times. Again, when you look at the parliamentary results, it's been also very much strong for the NDC. Of course, there's been some decline in performance. Again, when we look at that 2016 swell, as you've been calling it, there was a sharp decline. But 2020, there was another uptick for the NDC. Again, that performance for the MPP, this you say NPP, that performance for the MPP in the 2016 elections, especially on the parliamentary side, was very, very strong because they moved from having 0 seats to clinching 5, which is like a miracle in terms of election results. It is a huge jump to move from having no seats again to coming to 5 at a go. Of course, a very huge jump. But again, we see that in the 2020 election, they lost 2 of that.
People just realize that, oh, wait, what did we do?
They lost 2 of that. And of course, the NDC gained 2 to now increase their hold to 8, which is still not up to 10. But it's a bit...
It's better than the 6 they had in 2016. And again, eventually, as the show goes on or in subsequent shows, we would even go to some specific constituencies, and then it tells a better story of how things have changed over the years. And this is how the
presidential
graph
for the Upper
has
West
looked like over
pretty
time.
much been for the NDC. No major surprises happening there. The key things to point out, again, the 2016 swell that happened. Of course, the NDC lost a little bit. The NPP also gained a little bit. But things sort of normalized to trend, if I should call it that way, when it came to the 2020 elections.
Coincidentally, things over-normalized because the highest the NDC had gained in the Upper West region was 65.2. Then in 2020, it shot to 67.4. So they actually made a marginal increase. And the NPP also lost out quite significantly, dropping
to their second lowest.
Yes, their second lowest.
Or actually, third lowest when you count in the 2020 election.
Yes, the 2000 elections. All right, so we've just been trying to put in perspective what the voting trends have been in the 5, but then we are focusing on the 3 key ones. So these are the total number of those persons who have registered to vote. It is the 12th highest in terms of the rankings, and their numbers hovering around 518,365 people who will be turning out to vote. If you look at the nominal numbers and the voter turnout, voter turnout is also significant to look at. If even, say, 60% of these people turn out to vote, it could change the dynamics completely. You know, so although it's a very safe seat for the NDC, over time we've realized that whenever there is a likelihood of a change in government, voter turnout increases. You know. So this is a particular region to also keep a very close eye on, and we'll see how things play out.
That's a good point to note in terms of voter turnout, because with Greater Accra on top of that table, in fact, with the top 3 regions in terms of total registered voters, you would see that there is a lower percentage of voter turnout. Right? So again, even though these regions will be at the bottom, there's a higher turnout when it comes to how people galvanize the grassroots to go and vote for them. So it's key to focus on the numbers, but also focus on what the turnout has historically been and what it is projected to be for the 2024 elections.
Right. So one other thing we probably in coming days will talk about will be the So, you know, Greater Accra, in terms of land size, is small. These areas are quite huge and sparsely, the settlement is quite sparse and scattered. The challenge sometimes is that they having to travel to places to vote is a challenge. Some people, they either are going on horses or donkeys or have to trek. You know, so it's a major challenge that, you know, over time, the Electoral Commission also needs to pay particular attention to, you know, so you make voting a lot more easier for people. You know, there was a concern about registration during the registration period. People wanted everybody to go to their district office. Whereas there could be a police station right in the neighborhood, they could go to and vote. Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for staying with us. And what we've been doing today is just trying to help you also understand and stay in the conversation of how the northern, northeast, and Savannah regions have voted. Also, we added the upper east and upper west. They predominantly seem to have voted for the NDC. However, the NPP has made significant inroads, like Senna indicated. And depending on the messaging and the activation, the political campaign activities in those areas, the dynamics could change significantly going into 2024. Eventually, as the show goes on or in coming days, we'll try and go onto the ground and try and tease out some of the key issues of concern to the constituency. Senna, thank you for passing through.
Thank you
very much. We'll be doing a lot more. We'll keep an eye on him. We'll be bringing him more to the set to help us, you know, break down some of these issues for you. You're still watching Election360. Stay with us. We have more for you right after this video. The national conversation is a very crucial exercise that you need to be a part of, so do stay with us. Today, though, the election management body in Ghana, the Electoral Commission, says it has what it takes to deliver a credible election, insisting its processes are robust and transparent. This is in reaction to a number of allegations and accusations against the EC. Deputy Chairperson Dr. Bosman Asare has claimed that politically exposed persons have been appointed as members of electoral bodies, and that, according to Bosman Asare, will not affect the work they do as a management body. Let's listen to it.
we don't appoint people to become commissioners. You know, that responsibility rests with a certain president. But what we have maintained is that when you look at our standard operating procedures, all others, apart from the chairperson and the 2 executives, and those who are directors, district officers, etc., who are full-time employees of the EC, all others, they function like board members, other commission members. And by law, these are people, the commission meets once every 2 months. And we've made it very clear that for the nature of the work we do, if even you are a flag bearer of a party, and you are appointed as the chairperson of the commission, or a deputy chairman to that effect, there is nothing you can do.
How so?
Because the point is that all the processes we undertake in the lead up to the elections, we do it in concert with the political parties. Let's begin from registration. Before we register people, we give notice. We notify the parties 21 days before. And at each registration center, the parties are expected by law. They are expected to bring their agents at each registration center. And we have what we call start of day report and end of day report, which we share with the parties. So by the end of the registration, the parties have a clear idea of how many people have registered at each registration center. So the national figures we put out, the parties have almost similar, if not the same numbers. And when we are doing exhibition, although the parties don't send people there, the parties are at liberty to send people to the exhibition centers. And we did transfer. For the first time in 2024, during the voter transfer, we did allow parties to send their agents over there to observe the process and to comment on any activities they believe were untoward at the registration at the district office that did the transfer. So apart from the voting, printing of ballots, we do it in concert with the political parties. The parties have their agents at all the printing houses. Everything we are doing it with them. So what the commission has maintained is that, assuming you are the flag bearer of a party, and we make you the chairman, the deputy chairman, there is nothing you can do. Because after the ballots have been, after the polls, close of polls on election day, the counting is done in the full glare of the media, agents of parties, and everyone. So the basis of the results, we get them from the polling station. So we think that all those trying to raise arguments about that, it doesn't add up, because there is nothing anyone can do to influence the outcome of the elections.
So the part about transparency and governance,
no, we think
due to your expertise and your background.
I think that the processes are all the things we do are very, very transparent. You know, when you talk about trust, you know, those are people can decide. But I know that the parties clearly, all the parties, including the main opposition parties, and the main one again, the NDC, they are very, very much aware that all those of us who work at the Electoral Commission, as the chair, the deputy chairman, the commission member, there is nothing we can do.
Okay.
So that is Dr. Bosman Asari, who has been reiterating the EC's readiness and preparedness and the robustness of the electoral process, indicating that if even you put John Mahama and Dr. Baumia as the executives within the Electoral Commission, they cannot do much in terms of changing the electoral results or the voting patterns. So be rest assured the EC will conduct free, fair, credible election on December 7 and beyond. All right, so these are the two gentlemen that are canvassing for our votes as Ghanaians. Where are you going to vote? What are the key issues that are on your mind when you go to the polling booth to vote on December 7? Mind you, they are all pushing specific agendas that they believe Ghana in its current state will need if it wants to make progress. The NPP has been campaigning on a number of issues, including the free senior high school policy, which they started in 2008, campaigned with it in 2012, brought it into 2016, and then Ghanaians gave them the mandate. They've implemented it. Many thought they would, have other key campaign messages, but it looks as though they've come back to the free senior high school policy, saying that if the NDC does come into power, they might destroy the free senior high school policy. So it's part of the key things they are campaigning with. John Dramani Mahama, on the other hand, has thrown out a number of policies and promises he intends to roll out Key amongst it will be the 24-hour economy that the NDC campaigners are pushing through to ensure that if you want that kind of policy to be rolled out in Ghana, then you have to vote for the NDC. So it's a battle of the North for the two gentlemen, the battle of the country, the souls and minds of Ghanaians on December 7 as you go out to vote. Pay particular attention to them, but most importantly, stay with TV3, your election command center will keep you right up until now, until when one of these two gentlemen become the next president of the Republic. That's it for our show. Thank you very much for watching. I am Martin Asiedu Date, and as always, hasta la vista. Bye for now.